everybody. Today I'm doing a process video of this wedding scrapbook layout I made for my sister. This photo of my mom's sister and my Oma, my grandmother, and I is really near and dear to my heart. And so I wanted to make sure that this layout was really special. I just added some pop dots to the back of the photo, and I had previously fussy cut out a bunch of flowers from Prima's Optimist line. I've been holding on to these papers for a while. And I'm just kind of arranging them to see what I like best. And yeah. In the photo, my grandmother's transfer chair had like a little metal pin that was up in front of her foot. And so I wanted to hide that in the photo because it was kind of distracting. So I used that paper flower to kind of hide that. And I'm happy with the placement, so I'm just putting down a little bit of glue on the edge that's gonna slide underneath the photo there and pressing it down. And for the smaller pieces, I'm just using some Ranger ink glossy accents for the adhesive. I really like using that on really thin die cuts and other things like that. Now I'm just adding some pop dots to the flowers that I want to kind of raise up. I wanted to make sure that there was a lot of texture and dimension in this layout. I really like adding dimension to my layouts. I don't like flat, boring layouts. And now I'm taking some little flowers from Prima's Something Blue line, and I'm cutting them in half, and I'm just going to tuck them under the photo like I did the paper flowers that I fussy cut. And I'm just sticking a little element that I fussy cut out from the papers also under that flower. And I wanted to add this little cabochon with this hummingbird on it because my Oma had some hummingbird sun catchers in her window at her house, and every time I see hummingbirds it reminds me of her, so I wanted to make sure I included that in the layout. And I'm just sticking down the flowers that had pop dots, making sure they adhere to the photo, so it kind of pulls the photo back up so I don't have to use a ton of pop dots on the back of the photo. And I'm just using some glossy accents to adhere the paper flowers from Something Blue line. Sorry, my head's in the way. And I'm also taking some flower stamens from Marion Smith Designs Bloom Impression line and some heavy body gel from Prima. And I'm just dipping those down in there after folding them in half. And I'm just going to tuck them under those little flowers to add a little bit more dimension and texture. Sorry, my head keeps getting in the way. I just set myself up a nice overhead rig and I'm getting used to it. I'm just using a palette knife to put a little bit of that heavy body gel on the back of that Cabicon so that I can adhere it to the photo. And I'm doing the same again to the paper flower. Making sure I cover up that little silver pin in the photo that's so distracting. I just use the back of my tweezers to get under the flower and press that piece of paper down. I really like layering different types of textural and dimensional elements in my layouts. I think it really adds something special to have things with different textures and different heights. I think it really makes your scrapbook pages, come to life off that background page. I also really like how the dark background paper really makes the subjects in the photo pop. And I'm just kind of deciding which flare button I want to use. Make sure I get it placed just right before I press it down. My head's in the way again. But you guys get the point. I'm just kind of deciding if there's any other flowers or things that I want to add. Maybe doilies. I think I decided against those. But I took the time to cut it in half, and I like placing and seeing. I'm really visual. Have a certain shape in mind, when putting embellishments around photos, and then after that it's just kind of trial and error and placing and seeing if I like it, and if I don't, then take it off and try something else. I think I just decided it was all a little too much. That the doilies were too bright, and I didn't want to alter them, so. realized I didn't glue down one of my little paper flowers. Just kind of cleaning up my mess. And then I decided I wanted to add a little banner with some stamping. So I'm just de-staticking that and getting out my little lawn fawn stamps. I really like these because they give you multiples of the letters that you use most often. Like there's a ton of E's in this set and I love it, which is great because I'm making the word generations, since there's 3 generations of women in my family in that photo. And a little background on my Oma. She was born in 1920, and she was an Austrian citizen, and she lived during, she lived in Austria during the war, and was a Holocaust and World War II survivor, and so she was kind of my hero, and I looked up to her a lot growing up. I'm trying some clear ink on here with some embossing powder first, just to kind of see what I like. And I just use these little things I get in the mail from all the flower and garden companies. It's great for collecting my embossing powder. Adrian, put your embossing powder away. But anyway, so my Oma had kind of a hard life growing up, and after the war she met my Opa, my grandfather, and they got married, and he was in the army, so they did a little bit of moving around before coming to America, but that's how she ended up here. I decided that I couldn't see that, even though it was a white pearlescent powder, I couldn't really see it well enough on the black. So I'm going to try a white ink. Sorry, that's my dog barking. A white ink on there, and then adding the pearlized powder. And this just gave it a little bit more oomph so that you could see it on that black paper. My little dog, he's got to protect me. And here I'm just cleaning off my stamp with a little wipe. And I'm just taking a brush now that all of that's dried and just removing the excess glitter from that embossing powder and the de-staticking powder. And I use a couple different brushes to just try and get that off so that the black cardstock really comes back to life. So you can see that bottom option really pops a little bit more. So I cut that down using my trimmer. And I'm just going to use my small Tim Holtz snips and cut down the center and then from the corners to create a flag shape. And now I'm just going to cut off a little bit of that excess there on the other side, and I'm just trying to figure out where exactly it is that I want to place it. Just cut off a little bit extra. I just want to make sure it looks nice and fits on the page. And then add a little glue to the back and tuck it under that flower. And then I'm just using my fingers to curl the end just a little bit, just to give it a little more dimension. And I also went and found a few other things from my stash. I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I've set aside for doing Caitlin's wedding album. And I just wanted to add some pearls. They were a big part in the wedding. My sister got some pearls as her something new from our dad to wear. And pearls also make me think, of my grandmother, my Oma, like grandma's pearls. And so I just wanted to include some pearls on the page. And it kind of took me a while to decide exactly where I wanted it. I didn't want it to take away from the photo too much. I didn't want it to be kind of like this big centerpiece. But I wanted it tucked in there. So there's another little treasure to find on the page. And I'm, again, just using a palette knife to put some of that heavy body gel on the back of that. And just give that a firm press down. And I got some crystals, some little gems from Prima's Stationer's Desk line that I thought the colors matched really nicely with this layout. And I kind of lightly lay them down onto the paper and group them how I want them. And I find that over time, a lot of times, and I'm guessing it's probably because I live in Colorado, it's really dry and arid here. Sometimes the backing on those crystals kind of dries and shrivels up and they come off the page. And so before I really press them down, I add a little glue dot to the back just for an extra layer of adhesive. So kind of off the camera, you can't see it, but I'm adding some glue dots to the back of those and giving them a nice firm press. There were a couple spots on the photo where it was kind of falling back down towards the background page. And so I just wanted to make sure that it was popped up nicely. So I just added a few more pop dots to that. And it takes a little while for that heavy body glue to dry sometimes. So I just kind of moved it and put it aside and then placed it back on. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this process video.